There are hundreds, if not thousands, of products that studio photographers use that are on the outside of the set. They're never seen within the frame of the photograph. At the same time, there's another category of products that are designed to be seen within the frame of the photograph. They make a studio photographer's life easier. I like to call them fabulous fakes. They are ice cubes in all different shapes and sizes. They are frost effects. They are chopped ice effects. They are snow effects, that all of them don't melt under the hot glare of studio lights, and they're worthwhile knowing about. Some of you might think that, who needs this stuff? We can just as easily throw some ice cubes into a glass of Scotch liquor and just put it on a tabletop and take a picture of it. Well, you might think that's true, but I don't know if you'd be 100% right. In the first place, the ice cubes would melt as you were setting up the shot. Not only would the ice cubes melt, but that would mean that they would get smaller and move around in the glass. Furthermore, when they turned to water, they would dilute the product that you were photographing. And when they diluted the product you were photographing, the famous, beautiful amber golden color of a liqueur or a liquor, or the crisp brown effervescent color of Coca-Cola or some cola drink might be diluted and certainly wouldn't look as exciting or as accurate as the real thing. Lastly, it might be that if you were trying to use real ice to pull off one of these shots, the ice, as it melted, would form a layer of water on top of the actual product that you were photographing. I have here a cup of iced coffee. The ice cubes in it have melted, and if you notice, there's a band at the top which is primarily water. That's because the ice cubes melted and the water didn't sink down through the coffee. You don't want to dilute the color of a product. You don't want different layers of color in the product if you were shooting the glass from the side. So Set Shop has products that get around this melting ice problem. The first thing we're going to talk about today are 4 different kinds of ice cubes. But before we do that, let's talk about not touching the ice cubes with our fingers. We don't want to put a fingerprint onto the ice cube. So if we're going to work on sets like this, where we might be doing a macro close-up photograph of ice cubes, our best bet is to use latex gloves. Now, the point about latex gloves is that some of you may be allergic to latex, but they also have nitrite gloves, nitrite rubber gloves that don't have the same problem. They are more hypoallergenic. I don't have any trouble though with latex gloves, but the only problem is that you're going to find that when you work with latex gloves on your hands are going to sweat and you're going to want to rip them off. I'm sorry, you can't. Now, this is a perfectly pristine ice cube. It's relatively large sized. More importantly than that, if you picked up 10 different one of these ice cubes, each would be different from the other. They're individually handmade. Set Shop sells them individually. They also are available for rental by the day. But if you do a lot of product photography that includes liquor and colas and soda and products that you see in almost every magazine that you've ever picked up, you might be interested in having a few of these for yourself. This perfectly pristine ice cube is available in 2 different sizes. One about an inch in width and height and depth, and the other about 1.25 inches. There's just a slight difference, but the two of them have to do with what size glass you're using them in. The third type of ice cube, if you look at it carefully, has fissures in it and cracks within it and little parts of bubbly stuff inside of it. And it's not as pristine and beautiful a piece of ice as this one is. One of the things that you should consider if you were going to invest in some ice cubes of your own, or even if you rented them, is that they should be meticulously clean before you put them into a glass of scotch, for argument's sake. One way to clean these, because they're acrylic, is with plastic cleaner. This one's called Brillianize, and I've mentioned it before. If you were to use this cleaner to clean this ice cube before you used it, you can't do it with a paper towel, because paper towels are the biggest lint producers in the entire world. In fact, if lint was a crime, they would put paper towels away for their whole life. What you should use is a rag that's made from an old t-shirt. You cut up the t-shirt and you make it into a rag. And the reason why I say an old t-shirt is because a cotton t-shirt that's been washed 100 times, most of the lint has been washed out of it. As a hint, if you do get yourself a couple of good rags, you should keep them in a Ziploc bag when you're not using them. And the reason for that is you don't want dust to collect on the rag, so that when you clean something with the rag, you're transferring dust onto the product you're cleaning. One of the problems with these kind of ice cubes is what I want to talk about next. Here's a glass of water. This ice cube is acrylic, and it is heavier than water. Watch what happens when I drop this ice cube in the glass. The ice cube doesn't float. It sinks. Set Shop also sells blocks of silicone rubber. They're clear, and I've found that the best way to use them is to put a cut in them with a razor blade and then literally just break off a piece. Now, I'm going to take a second glass of water and put it down on my set. Let me move a little piece of silicone rubber. And I'm going to take this ice cube and I'm going to drop it into the water. Watch what happens. It floats. But as it's floating, it's still not going to melt. It'll sit in this water all day long. And if you wanted to, you could break off another chunk and stick it in the glass. You could keep taking chunks off this block of silicone rubber. You could carve it with an X-Acto knife into shards of ice. But the point is that this particular piece of ice substitute, this fabulous fake, does one thing that that fabulous fake doesn't. It floats. That doesn't mean that I don't prefer this one. And sometimes what I'll do is put a bunch of ice cubes in a glass so that my ice cube comes up to the surface because it's resting on ice cubes below it. When you do that, it's not as easy a thing to photograph as you might think, because if you show the whole glass, you would see ice cubes going all the way down to the bottom of the glass, and that looks unnatural. But if you were just photographing the top surface of the liquid, and the top ice cubes just broke that surface, you would never know that they were being supported by other ice cubes beneath it, and it would look totally natural. So my favorite choice is this. My second favorite choice is this. But both of them would help to give you a realistic version of what an ice cube might look like. You should also know that a lot of photographers will take a little bit of hot glue and glue a stack of these ice cubes together, sort of willy-nilly on different angles, so that the top ice cubes reached all the way to the top of the glass. I'm not a big fan of using hot glue to do that, but some silicone bathtub sealer, which is clear, can be used also to do the same thing, and when you're done, the silicone seal peels off because it's basically rubber, and we're working with acrylic plastic ice cubes here. Another Set Shop specialty product is called Instant Ice. Basically, it's a kind of crystal where you take a tablespoon of the instant ice crystals, you put them in a bowl, you add 2 cups of water to the tablespoon of crystals, you stir it, and you walk away, and it magically turns into little ice shards. Set Shop, the instructions suggest using distilled water, but I've gotten good results using regular water. They also say that it could take between 4 hours and overnight to get the full extent of it being absorbing the water. However, I've found that if you warm the water and use like hot tap water, the reaction happens much more quickly. We're going to create this right now and show you how it's done. You start off with a regular bowl. I'm using a Pyrex baking bowl or a storage bowl. You get out your old measuring spoons. You take a spoonful of the ice crystals. You dump them into the bowl. By the way, you cap the jar so that you don't end up spilling it and ending up in a studio full of snow. You pour 2 cups of hot water over it. You give it a stir. And then you put it aside, and you come back every hour and look and get excited. Have you ever noticed that in a produce department of a high-end supermarket, every 15 minutes or so, water is sprayed on the fruits and vegetables that are waiting to be purchased by customers? They spray them with water because it makes them look more enticing. It makes them look alive. It makes them more pleasant to look at. And it's one of the things that we can do to make our pictures more exciting. Not only can we apply water droplets to fruits and vegetables, but we could also apply water droplets to beer bottles or labels of something. The problem is that under the hot lights of a studio, the water that was sprayed onto a product or a fruit or a vegetable would disappear literally in seconds. It would evaporate. Or worse than that, it would just run off and dribble off the product that we were putting it on. There's one way around this, and that's to use a product instead that'll take the place of the water droplet. And in this particular instant, that product is called glycerin. Glycerin is an absolutely clear, colorless liquid. It's not poisonous or anything like that. And it's used when you dilute it a couple of times with water, like 2 parts or 3 parts water to 1 part glycerin. It's a skin moisturizer, and it helps eliminate chapped hands and chapped lips. Now, glycerin can be put onto a product or a fruit or a vegetable or a beer bottle label in individual droplets, and every droplet will stay where you place it while you photograph the item. Not only will the droplets stay where you place it, but it also won't evaporate. It won't leave the product until you actually wipe it off. Since it's soluble in water, washing it off is just as easy as using a damp or moist cloth. I apply my droplets of glycerin with round paintbrushes, and they come in different sizes. They're numbered. Number 1 is the smallest size that I use. Then there's a number 2 brush, a number 3 brush, and a number 4 brush. Each brush has a successively larger amount of hair and can hold a larger droplet of glycerin. Have you ever walked into a bar on a hot July night and you ask for a beer and they serve it to you in a frosted mug? The frosted mug feels great in your hands. It feels great when it touches your lips. It keeps the beer icy cold and really thirst quenching. Have you ever noticed that by the time you're halfway done with the beer, the frosted mug is no longer frosted? It's already gotten to the temperature, the room temperature in the bar that you're in, and basically the fabulous effect is gone. Wouldn't it be nice if there was a product that would allow you to frost a beer bottle or frost a mug and have it stay frosted until you could get your shot of it? Well, it just so happens that there is a product that does that, and it's called Frost Effects. We're going to show you how you can put this on a bottle or on a glass, although we're going to do it on a bottle, and it stays on the bottle until you wash it off. So you can frost a glass or you can frost a bottle, and it's there until you're finished getting your photograph. What we're going to be doing now is figuring out how to block off part of the label on this bottle so that we don't have the frost effect destroy the name of the product. We're going to do that by making a mask that we're going to hold off the surface of the bottle with some Fun Tack. That's about the size of my summer ale top label on this bottle. I'm going to cut slightly into that on this piece of mat board, and I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to round off the corners of my mask slightly, and I'm going to round them off here a little bit, and then I'm going to round them off at this last corner here. Now, I'm going to take a piece of Fun Tack, a blob of it. I'm going to roll it into like a 1/4 inch diameter, 3/8 inch piece, and I'm going to stick it. Whoops, first I'm going to bend my mask so that it conforms to the shape of the bottle. Then I'm going to take a little blob of Fun Tack that I placed here, and I'm just going to put this like here until we use it in a little while. And I'm going to draw something that's approximately as wide as my product. And just like I did previously, I think this may be a little too wide. I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to flex it again to make a circle. And the same way I did on the top piece, I'm going to round the corners. Now also, if you notice where it says Craft Extremely Fresh Brewed, well, I can take away a little bit of the corner of my mask here because I don't feel that that's too important. And then I'll round the corners again like this. And then I'm going to take another piece of Fun Tack and I'm going to roll it into a big ball about 1/4 inch thick. And I'm going to place it in the center of this part of my mask. I'm now going to push this down onto the label like so. And then I'm going to take this little piece, this little mask, and I'm going to push it down onto this piece on the top. Now notice that because the mask that I made sticks over it sticks far out from the side. If I spray the spray this way, some of it will go under the mask and it'll give me a soft edge to the spray that I'm using. Okay, here we go. Now, I'm just going to let the spray dry for a couple of seconds. It already feels dry on my hands. I'm going to use some soap and water in a little while. Now, this is the bowl of ice that we had before, and I'm going to take my Blue Point Summer Ale and place it onto this set. Now I'm going to take my glycerin and I'm going to take some globs of it and I'm going to put it on my label, and I'm just going to drag it down a little, and then I'm going to put some on my top label and drag it down a little. These products can make your life much easier and allow you the time to develop your vision more carefully, develop your lighting, develop your composition. It allows you time to think about what you're doing, none of which would be possible if you used more ephemeral products, products that disappeared like within minutes after being put in front of the camera. Considering that we threw this picture together in all of 2 minutes, I think it's pretty close. If you were going to do it for a client as opposed to just a demonstration, I could see turning around and starting with 24 bottles of Blue Point Ale, a Blue Point Summer Ale, and spraying each one of them and using different size masks so that we would have a variety of bottles to play with. I also think that we might want to work with the ice, the instant ice, to cover more of the bottle. But the point is that it still looks real, and it looks, you're talking about something that says summer, but at the same time looks cool and refreshing. We want anybody who thinks about this to go, wow, that would really cool me off on a hot summer day. So what we're doing right now is I'm just trying to paint some little rivulets of glycerin. And then when we finally light this thing, it should be ready to go. Okay, we're getting there, folks. All right, we're going to put a light coming in across it that sort of like makes the glycerin little particles glow.